Hey lovely sexy hobby people, welcome to today's video, which is going to be the review for issues 55 and 56 of Warhammer Combat Patrol. My delivery dropped on Wednesday this week, so that was what, the 1st of October, and in that delivery we got a letter regarding another character pack. This time it's Boss Snickrot. Commando Warfare is his speciality, so we're going to have a look through. I also got, as well as the 55 and 56, we got 57 and 58, so these two, but we're going to have a look at 55 and 56, which I believe are Hernkyn Pioneers, so repulsor lift jet bike type things. Let's have a look, shall we? Hey, lovely sexy hobby people. Right. So, issues 55 and 56 of Warhammer Combat Patrol are the Hernkyn Pioneers, parts 1 and 2. However, before we get into that, we have another character pack. So this will be the third character pack. So they seem to really be going for it in this, this time around. Now, this is get your exclusive Boss Snickrot character pack now. In this special issue, you'll learn about one of the most notorious orcs to ever stalk the galaxy. Snickrot is an infiltrator without peer, feared by orcs and humans alike, and now he's yours to command. Boss Snickrot is a murderous ghost whose obsession with commando warfare has seen him transcend the cunning of his fellow blood axes and achieve instead something nigh supernatural. By the time his terrified foes realise he is upon them, the boss is already opening their throats with his rip-toothed blades. This special issue of Combat Patrol comes with the plastic sprue necessary to assemble your Boss Snickrot, build and paint guides, as well as a detailed background on the character and all the rules and data sheets required to take your miniature to battle. I'm going to probably caveat the detailed background, because whilst there is a little bit of background fluff on the character, it's not that detailed. This brand new character pack comes for the special subscriber issues of £9.99 or €12.99 for the Republic of Ireland. As a subscriber, we have already reserved this Boss Snickrot character pack for you, and it will be sent out automatically in your next dispatch. So this is essentially they have a automatic inclusion which you have to cancel. There are people that disagree with that. Because it should be an opt-in rather than opt-out option. If you do not wish to receive your limited edition character pack, then you can contact us using the contact form noted at the top of this letter. So it says hashetpartworks.com/contact to cancel the order. We would like to thank you for your subscription and blah blah blah. Hope you enjoyed collecting. Yours sincerely, Hachette. So that is our next character pack. I can't remember if I get the next. I honestly can't remember if I get the next premium kit in the next delivery. So if we do, it'll be a bumper delivery. But I can't remember if it's 61 or 63 the next one turns up at. I'm probably wrong on both those. But hey, never mind. Right. Hernkyn Pioneers. So we have the sprues. We have quite large oval bases. I think these are the same size as the Space Marine Outriders. So 55 and 56, we have great artwork on the front there. Then we're straight into our how to build. We have various heads here. So we have 2, 4, 6, 8, 11, I want to say. 2, 4, 6, 8, no, just 10. And it looks like we are gluing halves together and then various ancillaries onto them after that. Now it looks like, so we're going to be building, these seem to have the same chassis. They all seem to have the same chassis. So we go up to step 2B and they're all the same. So essentially we should have produced 3 the same. Then we are producing additional repulsor lift mechanisms. So we're doing 2 lots of 3, I'm assuming for left and right. And then after that, we get into the separate builds. So one of these is a gun platform with a gunner and a pintle mounted weapon, heavy weapon I suppose. And then we also have one with an antenna here, which could be the comms vehicle. So that would be their equivalent of the FFR, I suppose, fitted for radio. And then we have one here which has various different backpacks. Oh no, they can, do they all have backpacks? So the dual mounted, the one with the pintle mounted weapon doesn't appear to have a backpack, but you get 3 lots of luggage essentially to go on to the back of your bikes. Yeah, there you go. That is what you've got. We have stuck pages. Do you know, just for once I would have really liked to have seen some Tau as like the main protagonist in one of these collections. Oops. And there you go. Right. So, Kin Society, talking about the Leagues of Votann and their society. It says here, the Leagues of Votann are an ancient civilization whose complex traditions frequently confound those outsiders who learn anything about them at all. But as far as the kin are concerned, their society is the height of efficiency and good sense. A tried and tested machine that works to ensure the survival in a galaxy at war. Are these guys the squats? So for those that don't know, the squats were a race of space dwarves back in the earlier days of 40k. And I believe, from what I've read, GW discontinued them. And they basically said that the Great Devourer, as in one of the Hive fleets from the Tyranids, devoured their home planet. Now, I understand that these guys are essentially some of like these Hernkyn pioneers with these repulsor lift jet bike things. They're very similar to kits that the squats had, I believe. So are these guys the squats in this in Descendancy, basically? So kindreds are the most fundamental units of kin society, and the closest things to their cloned species has to families, ranging from a few dozen individuals to many thousands. Each kindred is built on a foundation of shared technology. You have guilds for every occupation a kin can hold, there is a guild, an association of those kin who practice the same trade or craft in a given region of kin space. And then leagues. In the ancient days when the kin took to the stars, they formed coalitions around their ancestor cause. So so they have the ability to download their, I can't remember if it's just memories or consciousness into it's kind of like a mainframe computer, which when if their kin band is about to be wiped out, they can do that. And then if that ancestor core is recovered, I believe those consciousness can be reinstalled into cloned bodies. I believe that's the way around it. In order to protect them. In time, these alliances developed into the spacefaring nations known today as leagues. Each league consists of multiple kindreds who share the same heraldry, philosophy and methods of war, as well as the same ancestor cores that guide them to this day. Then we have orc clans. So both of these are for our red section. This is red section. This is read K and read J for the orcs. So talking about orc clans, and then it gives you some of the more well-known, like Death Skulls, Evil Sons, Bad Moons, Snake Bites, and Blood Axes and Freebooters. I don't see the Goths mentioned. Hernkyn Pioneer, so you have a D6 rolling chart for background. So their maneuverable bikes and panoply of weapons make them deadly flanking force. You can name your unit and then tick off when you've built, paint and played. Then you have a data sheet. So, as is befitting what would essentially be a fast attack unit, it has a 12-inch move. It is toughness 6, 4 up save, 3 wounds, it's a 7+ leadership and objective control 2. Bolt revolver pistol, bolt shotgun, high las rotary cannon and magna coil auto cannon, and then the melee weapons are plasma knife. So it has a core rule for scouts 9 inches, and then faction Eye of the Ancestors, and then outflanking mag riders. So they're Magna Coil bikes. Right, campaign, Chaos Space Marines versus Space Marines. There is nothing but hatred between the Space Marines and their traitorous brethren, the Chaos Space Marines. Circumstances may bring these two into conflict, but they will also fight out of enmity alone. The Chaos Space Marines have been sent to the area by their masters to sow terror among the inhabitants of the system and take strategic positions for the next step of their campaign. They take every pleasure in attacking and burning worlds for sport, but they also take a keen interest in the whereabouts of their enemies. Whenever they can see that a foe is gaining some advantage, no time is lost in trying to take it from them. Meanwhile, the Space Marines continue their search for ancient technology that might aid the Imperium in any of their many campaigns around the galaxy. The Space Marines are attached to a wider force of scouting parties acting as their escorts and their security, but they are spread thin and must react whenever the situation changes. The situation is volatile, and at any moment they might be called on another deadly mission. So, Chaos Space Marines. Scouts have confirmed that the small Space Marines force has installed itself on an ancient site in the middle of an uninhabited world. Quickly, the Chaos Space Marines send out a force to disrupt the Space Marines' plans. They must not be allowed to accrue the slightest advantage, and not only should the Space Marines be repelled from the area, but the whole site must be destroyed. Space Marines. The Space Marines have been sent to an uninhabited planet. They that may hold clues to ancient technology hidden elsewhere in the system. As soon as they start to report their findings, they come under attack from Chaos Space Marines. Orders come in to destroy the site and make sure that nobody else can follow the clues and find their scouting parties as they follow up on the intelligence that has been gathered. So we are playing Scorched Earth scenario. You will need combat patrol mission called Scorched Earth. You can find this in your collection at G Core Missions 4. The Space Marines are defending, and there's a triangular deployment zones for this one. So Chaos Space Marine Victory or Space Marines Victory callouts. Then we have Chaos Space Marines versus Tyranids. Do you know what? There's two of those. So the Chaos Space Marines versus Tyranids is called Sweeping Raid. And you are deploying on short table edges for this one, and will clash in the middle. And then we have Eldari versus Chaos Space Marines, and this is Display of Might. Again, forces are deploying on the short table edges, and you clash in the middle. So those are the campaigns. In part 2, we are painting our Hernkyn Pioneers. Did I miss something? Did I miss something in this episode, in this issue? Okay, all right. So it looks like, so looking at this, it looks like one of the maglev engines for emitters, for want of a better phrase, is pinned to a piece of rock on the base in order to levitate it. So that's how we're securing our pieces together. And when you start to paint, you will have them off of the rock itself so that you can do the base. And then once you've, and also you have obviously a full 360 rotation to be able to paint your miniature before gluing it down, which you wouldn't be able to do if you glued it down first, because there's probably going to be a small amount between the base and the vehicle itself. So Avalon Sunset for the overalls by the look of it, Lead Belcher for a lot of the mechanical parts on the machine itself, Wraithbone for flesh, Screamer Pink for some of the cloaks, Catachan flesh for some of the leatherwork, Rakarth flesh for some other bits and pieces. So we've got some fur on one of these coats. That's going to be painted with Rakarth flesh. And various other bits and pieces. So non-oil wash going down. So we essentially, a lot of these will be taken a lot further than what they were in earlier issues. If you are seeking to use the Astro Granite or a similar texture paste from GW to base your minis, then my advice would be put that on the base first and then leave that aside, and then you, whilst that's drying, you can be painting your bike itself. But here is the miniatures in progress. 1, 2, 3. Then we have Bonds of Honor for our Reed section E. The Silver Templars fiction is continuing. This is part 14 now. So that is going on quite a bit. Right. So it looks like we have a scenario in this issue. And then we have some more campaigns. The kin hosts. So some background fluff for our read red section. K, Leagues of Votan number 6. The kin hosts. The Leagues of Votan are an advanced technological society and a redoubtable military power. The best of their strategy, invention and leadership are combined in the kin hosts, the armies that defend the kindreds from external military threats and secure the safety of their vital mining and trading operations. Votanic councils. Kin hosts are governed by the Votanic councils. These are made up of the most noteworthy heroes within the kindred, such as the High Carl, the Lord Grimnar, and the Brokir Forge Master. These are dour and pragmatic figures whose primary aim is to secure the greatest victory at the least cost. Soldiers of the line. The kin host is usually built around a solid core of infantry, who the kin refer to as soldiers of the line. The most numerous of these are the highly trained and well-equipped Hernkyn warriors, but a kin host also contains combat specialists like the heavily armoured Einhyr and Scythonian berserks. So armoured might, we've got these fantastic wheeled vehicles that the leagues have. So the kin make use of their technological expertise by employing armoured vehicles on the battlefield. These can play the multiple roles depending on the situation. In some battles they may act as mobile firing platforms, raining down death on the enemy from afar. In others they may transport troops right to the front lines and shield them from enemy fire as they dismount to launch an assault on their still reeling foes. I can tell you from first-hand experience that launching an assault out of the back of a transport can actually be quite disorientating. It's something that you have to train for. So, to ward themselves against the vicious perils of the wider galaxy, kindreds band together in alliances called leagues. These leagues pool their resources, relationships and military might to prosper together, forming recognisable and unified cultures that have their own specific methods of surviving and thriving. So we've got some background fluff on different leagues here. So we get to the Greater Thurian League, the Trans-Hyperion Alliance, and the Imnir Conglomerate. We then have a campaign for the Orcs versus Space Marines. This one is going to be called Clash of Patrols. And you will be deploying on the long table edges, the long board edges, with clashing in the middle. We then have scenario 34, salvage the supplies. An expeditionary scout force of kin has intercepted a distress beacon from a downed Imperial vessel. Where potential resources can be salvaged, they will never miss the chance. The kin are not alone though, as the Eldari have also deployed forces with designs on capturing these potentially vital supplies. Time is of the essence and violence is all but a certainty. How to play. Starting with the Eldari player, place a total of 2 battlefield debris cards and 2 crater area terrain or barricade cards in empty sections on the battlefield. Then excuse me. Oh, excuse me. Then, starting with Leagues of Votan player, place a total of 3 objective markers, each in a different section of the crash site. Neither player may take any enhancements or secondary objectives or use any faction abilities or stratagems. Deployment. The Eldari player places the following units in their deployment zone. 1 unit of 3 Guardian Defenders with a Star Cannon, 1 unit of 3 Guardian Defenders and 1 unit of 3 Wind Riders. One of the Wind Riders should be armed with a Scatter Laser. Then the Leagues of Votan places the following units in their deployment zone. 3 Hernkyn Warriors, all equipped with Ion Blasters, and 3 Hernkyn Pioneers. So 2 units of 3 Hernkyn Warriors, all equipped with Ion Blasters, and 3 Hernkyn Pioneers. The Eldari player takes the first turn in this scenario. So the crash site is marked in red here. and then obviously you can deploy your terrain cards, etc. And then essentially you're going to be kind of deploying in opposite corners. How to win. In this scenario, the objective markers represent supply caches. At the end of each player's shooting phase, if that player has a friendly unit within 3 inches of any supply cache, and that unit did not shoot in its own phase, that unit can salvage a supply cache, or cache, depending on where you live, I suppose. Remove that objective marker from the battlefield and place it next to the unit. That unit is now carrying a supply cache. A unit can only carry one supply cache at a time. If a unit carrying a supply cache is destroyed before removing the last model in that unit from the battlefield, place the objective marker within 1 inch of that model. At the end of the 5th battle round, each player scores 5 victory points for each supply cache carried by friendly units. The player with the most victory points is the winner. If both players have an equal number of victory points, the battle is a draw. So there you go. Right, data sheets abilities. So a scout's reminder, outflanking mag riders. Just talking you through how that would win, and then your victory conditions. And then we have Scythonian Berserks in issues 57 and 58. Let's have a look at the plastic, shall we? Now, so we've got 3 bases, and these are a sculpt date of 2022. Now, it looks like they've set these up potentially so that there's 1 bike per section. So we got 3, and it looks like there's 1 bike per section, sort of thing. And they're all kind of laid out in a similar vein. So we have magna coils on each. We have bike halves, and then we have the front of the torso, the legs. Yeah, they're all laid out in a very similar vein, with only minor adjustments in each for the additional crew figure for the pintle mounted weapon. Let's have a look here. So this is our one which will have the pintle mounted weapon, and we have a standing dwarf, a standing Votan on this one, and that's his. That looks like his coat there. We've got the 2 chest pieces here, which will be for the front torso basically, and they've got quite a nice textured fur collar on those. And yeah, just looking at these, they seem to be, the bikes themselves seem to be fairly rudimentary without going into too much. These heads here have got cool goggles on them, which is what I might go with. You have got heads here with like leather caps, like leather flying caps and goggles. Yeah, and then like you've got arms holding what I'm assuming would be part of the handlebar system, and so on and so forth. Yeah, so these guys are obviously, oh, actually no, that's not the handlebar system. That might be the triggers for the weapon mount, because we've got the handlebars here. So yeah, so it looks like that. Looks like it's our gunner. That's, yeah, there's a pair of arms there, so they're going to be for the gunner. This looks like our pintle mounted weapon here. So this looks like it's going to have 3 barrels. Rotary was used in the description for it. And yeah, looking cool. There are quite a few little sort of like bedrolls and things. These are the packs which will go on the back of the bike here, like with dangling canteens and entrenching tools and stuff like that. Yeah, looking cool. It looks like you've got these roll bars as well. So these like roll bars on the back of the seat. This one's got the Vox antenna on it. And I did see some others. There's another one here with a lamp on it. Where did I see? Maybe not. Thought I saw some more. I can't see them now, bugger. Yeah, so looks cool. And we've got these holsters that hold these large weapons that they have. I've got another hand here holding a grenade. The spoon's just about to fly off, so he's getting ready to lob that. That's the step for our weapon mounted bike. Yeah, as I say, I've got another spare pack roll there. We got, I think these might be some sort of back seat here with some kit attached. So there's loads of kit hanging off these bikes, literally dripping off these bikes. So they look really good. And yeah, let's put them together, shall we? So I'll definitely build the heavy weapon version, and what I might do is build one of the other versions. I haven't decided if I'll definitely do that, but we'll definitely build a heavy weapon version, or what I might do is yeah, we'll definitely build the heavy weapon version. We'll do that. Right, come and join me on the desk and we'll get at least one built. So we're going to build some Hernkyn Pioneers, and what we're going to do is we're going to start off with the chassis, and the chassis builds initially from 4 parts. So we have this little ball section here, and this is something that you need to get right, not have too much glue floating around, because it will be, when it's joined to these 2 halves of the chassis, it will be angled, and you need to make sure that that angle is correct. So once that's done, this is then going to go into here, and it's going to angle itself so that it points sort of like forward at a slight angle. And I suggest putting it in one side and then putting on the other side like so. And this is going to be a case of going around and gluing it together slowly. So you're going to have to literally just zip round, add in the glue to where the seam is, and then allowing it to just settle like that. Okay, just like so. Now the seat is actually going to be covered up by the pilot figure once you come to do him. And so don't worry too much about the seam line down there. Now we have this going into position, and that's going to go onto this little box shape here. Like so. And then we have some pegs. Now when you put the pegs in, they are square pegs, square hole, but because these are, I don't know if you can see, but they have ribs on one side for grip when the pilot puts his feet onto the pedals. So just make sure that when you put them in, that they are angled towards the pilot slightly. Okay, so they will go in, and one on the other side. Like so. Okay, ta-da. Right, so there's our basic chassis. We are then going to add in these side pieces. Now this is the piece for the gun assembly, and you need to make sure that it lines up. Okay, so this arm here goes into a socket there. Like so. And then we have something similar on the other side, but that is just part of the cowling on the front here. Okay. Like that. And then we have the barrel for the gun, and this is keyed, so it's only going to go in one way. So just pop it in and give it a wiggle, make sure that you know which way round it's going to go. And then that will slot in, and then just make sure that you set it so that it's aligned on the up and down axis. Okay, so just make sure that you align that. And that's most of the chassis there. We then have a magazine drum which attaches here. So again, just make sure that you get this around the right way, and it should only go on one way. Like that. We then have the first of the repulsor lift items that are going on, and we have 3 repulsor lift items that will go onto these things. And on this one there is a space for kind of like a double like little, it seems like it's a little light array sensor sort of thing, and that's going to go in the front. And then we have the coil assembly, and this is going to attach itself to 3 little pins in there. And I found that the best way to do this is honestly just pop it on, and then just with the glue that you're using, and I do recommend either Tamiya thin, extra thin cement, or a EMA plastic weld, which is what I use. I decant it into a Tamiya bottle so that I can use the applicator that came with the Tamiya bottle. And then this, drop a little bit of glue into the center hole. This attaches on there like so. Okay, and that is the first part of the chassis assembly all done. We then come to these, and these assemblies are the side repulsor lift modules. And again, we're going to have a little kind of like sensor thing, which is going to just go into these grooves. Okay, so there's 1, and then 2, like so. Okay, and if you look inside, the pinhole that these are going to be glued, that you're going to use to glue these to this assembly, only goes is wider on one edge and then tapers to the other edge. So you need to make sure that you get these round the right way, and these are essentially going to assemble like that. Okay, so these will go together there like so. Okay, and then we are literally going to just pop the glue in there and just push, and then they actually have a bit of a lip here, so we can glue those bits together just there like so. Okay, just set that to the side, do the other one, that's those bits. Now this thing will point to the back, so when you attach these, this big sprung arm will be forward. Okay, so these will go on like so. So the big sprung arm here will be at the top. Okay, and then this arm on this kind of snaky appendage will go at the bottom. All right, so they will attach like so. So what you then need to do is just make sure that you get the right disc to get the alignment. There it is. And once you've sussed out which one goes with which, okay, then the other one isn't too much of an issue. So that will go onto the side like so. Okay, and these sort of like flare out to the side slightly. So you just need to be aware of that. And again, just make sure you get this around the right way. So when you come to glue these on, they will glue on and they will be in that kind of position. Okay. So that's your basic chassis. Now, with this model, right, this one I have chosen to be the model for the scatter laser, or whatever it is that the pintle mounted weapon that is going onto it. And this one is another chassis that I've built, and essentially I'm not going to show you a second chassis build because quite frankly they're both the same. But with this one, okay, so let's pop that one aside. With this one, there are some differences, and the differences are that we have different cross beams that can go on. Okay, so we've got like a sensor suite here, okay, that can go on, and this is like the roll bar sort of thing. Or we have a lantern, a search lamp, which I actually think is what I'm going to go with. So I'm going to just align that as best as possible, and then bring the glue in, and then by capillary action it will seep under where it's sat in order to just do that. Okay. Then we have these things. Now these things are the shelf unit for the stores that can be carried. So we've got different ones. So I've already used one on this Mini, and that's what I went with. So we have either this shelf with a coiled recovery rope, or this shelf with a roll bag. Okay, I'm probably going to do the coiled recovery rope, and that's just going to sit on the end. Okay. So you pop that on, and then you have a choice of additional items. Okay, and with this one I'm going to choose this one with the hanging down canteen. So that's the alternative build, and then obviously the other one, which was the roll bag, had some, you could put a stack of boxes there with a Pioneer tool attached. So that was that. Now, coming on to our last piece. Right, so you have these two repulsor pieces here, which will go into these assemblies. There is one of these, okay, has the little hole in it, okay, which is going to be for the rock. Okay, so these have little rocks here which have a little nub on them, and those are the repulsor. Those are the little attachment points that you're going to use to glue your magma bikes, I think that's what they were called, to the base once you've painted the base. Now I'm not going to glue these on, but we do need to make sure that we get this around the right way, and the easiest way to do that is pop your base. Once you've glued it, just pop your base into the hole that's there, and this kind of goes that way round. Alright, and then just see roughly where your bike will need to sit. Then I suggest load. You haven't glued this, by the way. Don't glue it to the bike, but then add glue to the base of the rock. Okay, and then what you're going to do is just add that to the base like so, and then just pop your finger or something onto the rock to hold it in position whilst you then wiggle away your repulsor. Okay, and that will now have time to go off. Alright, now we're not going to stick those on just yet. Right, so here's something that you need to make a decision on. Alright, before you glue your pilot to the base, or rather not glue the pilot to the base, but glue the rear repulsor lifts to the vehicle, and that is this. The rear repulsor lifts make it, if you glue these to the vehicle, it makes it virtually impossible for you to put the pilot figure in once those rear repulsor lift assemblies have been glued to the bike. Equally, if you put your pilot in with the intention of making him removable for the purpose of painting, you will need to not add in these assemblies, and I will show you what I mean. So this is one. This is the one I found out on. So the pilot currently for me for painting will slot quite easily into position. So I'm not going to glue him in specifically so that I can paint him and then add him to the bike afterwards. But the problem is, if you glue these on before your pilot, then the coat, I don't know if you can see this, ends up between these two parts of this rear repulsor lift assembly, and that's on both sides, okay? Which then makes it really difficult for you to pull the pilot out, okay? So if you glue these assemblies on, you are not going to be able to take the pilot in and out for painting off the bike. So you need to make a decision if that's what you want to do, right? Or if you want to leave them off so that you can then paint the pilot and the bike in sub-assemblies, then put your pilot back on the bike and then add in the rear repulsor lift assemblies, okay? So that's a decision that you need to make. So essentially, your rear repulsor lift assemblies would go on something like that. Sorry, there is a rear roll bar that you need to add to the bike for your pintle mounted weapon system. And I believe it's this one which has a couple of little anchor chains to it. Okay. Because these anchor chains will, when you come to make your gunner, those anchor chains will glue to the front of the gunner. Alright, so this is the one that you need to use. Now, the gunner. The gunner is made up with this large tailcoat piece here. Alright. And the legs. So what you're going to do is you're going to glue your jacket together, and I don't know if you can see this, but these sort of like folds on the front of the coat will come down and marry up with like other folds. So you need to make sure that they line up, and then add your glue. And then just make sure that that gets pressed together. Like so. And then you have this wide collar on the coat, and I found that the best way to do this is to just come in from the back like so. Okay, so there is the upper torso, right, the upper part of the body, and then your legs will glue on like so. Okay. And there's your body for your gunner. Now, we are going to add in this. Add that into the top. And that's our crossbar there. And then we have a separate roll bar specifically for the gunner. It has a mount for the pintle weapon. And just make sure you get this around the right way. So from what I can make out on the instructions, this needs to be to the left hand side of the bike. Alright, so it needs to be there. Alright. You then have this foot platform, which is going to attach here. And I make it that it's going to go there and partly rest on the bump bar at the bottom here. So you have a slot in the back, and add in that, and then just a bit of glue at the top there to make sure that it's definitely glued in. And then your guy, bugger, I don't know what that was that just went pinging over there. And then your guy is going to stand here, and as you can see, the two little tethers are going to just come out and glue to his belt once you've painted your mini. Now, handlebars, gun. Don't know, could have been a head. Could have been a head. Bugger. Okay, all right, well, that's not an issue. I'm sure it's over there somewhere. That's going to be really interesting to go and find. So now that these bits are in position, let's build our pilot for this bike. And we have 2 halves for the pilot. And just hold those together and then add your glue. And just make sure you marry them up. Okay. And then, again, we're coming in with this front of the coat. And this is going to go down. And then, again, these little folds on the front of the coat are going to marry up with folds here, and I recommend adding the glue from the inside of the fold. Okay, so there's one, and then the second one. Okay, so do that, and then just come in at the back and add that in there. Okay, so there's your pilot. Now, I am going to paint my pilot and his handlebar assembly all together. And on the handlebar assembly here, we've got this little control panel, which is going to go in the center. So, touch glue. And then I find that you can pop this into position like so and marry up the shoulder like that, and then that just makes sure that it's sitting where the connection for the handlebar would sit. All right, and then just add your glue in to the join like so. Just like that. And then on the other arm we have this pistol, which is just going to go in there. Okay, like so. Just leave that to go off a little. Now, gun assembly. You have your main body of the gun, like so. You then have the back of the receiver and the working parts here. And that's just going to go on like that. All right. We then have these arms and brackets that are going to attach onto this. And there's a little square pin that's going to attach. There's a little hole there and there. There is another barrel here which will need to attach. And I'm just going to bring the magnifier in so I get this round the right way. So just be aware that there's a triangular cutout here, and you will just need to position that so the triangular cutout sits in there. touch the other two, like so. Alright, and then that is the front assembly. We then have a little targeting scanner, which from what I can tell, now I am going to admit to doing this slightly wrong. And the good thing about plastic weld is it gives you a little bit of working time. So you need to make sure that you get the gun up the right way, which I didn't. You got a little cable on the back of the weapon, and that little cable goes upright. Okay, you then add in your gunner's arms. Okay, and then we have this little screen that's going to go on there. All right. And that is going to go on like so. And with your gunner's arms, just again make sure that they're going to go and sit okay, which they are. And then we have a little kind of like power pack here. And this, from what I can make out, goes on into these two little holes here, with there's a cross on it, and that will go uppermost. Okay, so there's your weapon assembly. Alright, and then when the time comes, this will glue onto this pin tool mount. So there's two little dimples in the brackets that the gunner is holding onto, and they will affix onto there. All right. So the only thing that's left really is just pop your heads on, and there are a number of heads. There aren't, from what I could make out, there aren't any helmeted heads, but there are a number of different heads in the kit that you can pick out and use. So I have gone for somebody with a bandana over their face as the gunner. So gunner, and then somebody with a kind of like a leather flying cap and goggles for the head of this particular pilot. Just be aware that these heads do fit quite snugly into the collar on the body on the coat here. One thing I forgot to mention was that these also have some additional accoutrements that you can put onto them. So there are these bed rolls. There are 3 bed rolls that you can put on just over the headlamp assembly there on the fairing. Okay, so bed rolls can go on just there like that. And then you have some various little bed rolls or whatever that, and you've got a tow cable here by the look of it that you can attach to the front, just between the spars on the front or across the spars on the front for the front repulsor lift. So I'm going to stick this bedroll into position there, and they do, some of them have little divots on them that you can use to secure, because there are some tiny little like raised pieces across those spars. So they can go on, and that's basically, you can get one there, and you can do that on each bike. Okay, so let's do the turntable shot, and I will see you in the next video. All right, take care. Bye bye.